welcome to the Lighthouse with a new episode. My name is Mari Cortano, and today I'm here with Marcelo Oleas, who will share with us how he made it through an incredible accident, which he had at a very young age, and how that accident transformed the trajectory of his life. So, Marcelo, I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your presence. How are you
Mari,
today?
thank you so much, and I appreciate the invitation. It's an honor to be here with you. I love following you on Instagram, which is how we met, and I'm a big fan of your content. I'm well, thank you. So how are you?
Wonderful. I look forward to hear your story because as well as I also follow you on Instagram, and I see the things that you share are always inspirational, motivational, and profound. And so I look forward to hear more together with our listeners and our audience to hear more about your story and how that transformed and changed your life, because this is what this space is about sharing our own experiences and challenges and how we move through those so that we can help other people navigate the same challenges if they're going through similar things right now. So it's like a light shining on their path. So I'm gonna hand it over to you. So please enlighten us.
Sure. So basically, as a kid, I always had a passion for music, right? Playing it, and then as I got a little bit older in my teens, then I got more interested in like the production aspect of it. So once it was time for me to go to college, my parents, they always supported, my interests, whether it was sports or just anything that I was passionate about, which I give them praise for that. And but when it was time for me to go to college, they were a little iffy about the whole music, me pursuing the music career, right? So they're like, okay, listen, go try, because I also like electronics in general and that kind of field. So they're like, why don't you go into electronics engineering or electrical engineering, try it out, see how you like it, and if not, then go ahead and pursue what you would like to do. So I was like, that's fair, and I did that for my first year. And even though I enjoyed it, it just wasn't for me. I could not take away my passion of wanting to be involved with music, right? So great, I did that. I switched universities, and then I started pursuing my audio engineering career. And I was very lucky. I met some great people, and I started in internships. And before you knew it, I was actually a head engineer in a recording studio in Brooklyn, New York, right?
Wow, that's amazing.
And so this was all happening while I was still attending school. At that time, I had switched over to schools in Connecticut, University of New Haven. And so I was young, doing what I love to do, right? I was in that field that I was very passionate about, and I was making great money, especially for such a young age, right? So one day I got invited to an engineering conference in New York City. So I'm in school in university in Connecticut. So then I get onto the interstate. I'm driving all excited because it was going to be an amazing day. And I'm driving behind this truck that is one of those construction hauling trucks, the ones that haul the huge construction containers at construction sites where all the debris is thrown. So we're both getting onto interstate, and I noticed that the back mechanism was raised, but I'm like, these people do this all the time. They know what they're doing. They drive these trucks every day, right? So anyway, we're both getting onto the interstate. There was a lot of traffic. I could not go to the left lane because there were, trucks driving in the middle lane. So I'm just accelerating, gaining speed, and maybe like around 100 yards from the entrance, there was an overpass. So the next thing that I know, I just remember hearing a very loud sound, right? And what happened is that this mechanism, it struck the overpass. So all the hydraulics snapped, and all this stuff is like landing on top of me, right? So, and this was just like in a matter of seconds. It felt like, like all the thinking that went through my head, it felt like minutes because I had so many different thoughts and so many aspects of my life, right? But it happened so fast. So The only thing that I could do, I couldn't move completely to the left lane because there was a big truck next to me. I had to slam on my brakes. I swerved as much as I could to the left without getting hit by another truck. And I just ducked. I just ducked. I was like,
Under
there's nothing
under
else
the
that I could
wheel.
do,
Oh my
you know?
goodness.
So all
Wow.
of a sudden I feel the impact and it's like dragging my car everywhere. And I just didn't know what happened until finally my car came to a stop because the metal just pretty much engraved into my car. So it was dragging. So until the truck stopped, that's when my car stopped. And this was in 97. So cell phones weren't as common, as they are now. I didn't have a cell phone at that time. Luckily, the car behind me had a cell phone, and he immediately came knocking on my window, and he was like, don't move. And I could hear him. I was just not comprehending what he was saying. And I just remember opening my door and it actually opened and I just like
Wow.
pop out of my car, right? And they're like, don't move, don't move. And um, so luckily, ambulances and the fire trucks came on time and they could not believe, when they got there, they could not believe that because they were like, where's the driver? Where's the driver? And by that time, I had already like moved to the side of the road and I was just laying there. And they were like, oh, he's over there. And they're like, what? You were in that car? There's no way.
Yeah.
So what happened externally, it felt like nothing. I didn't even have a scratch on me.
No way.
Not even a scratch on me. So that's why when they saw me, they were like, wow, there was definitely angels looking out for you today, right?
Yeah.
And but fast forward, and even just so I got taken to the hospital and they ran all these tests. And that's when everything started kicking in. My adrenaline started coming down. So now I started feeling all like the aches and everything, right?
Wow.
So long story short, after many, many exams, I had herniated disc. I just went through a lot of pain, right? So immediately the first thing that happened was like, wow, I can't work anymore. Like doing what I love to do because I could not be in any single position, whether it was laying down, sitting down, standing for more than 10, 15 minutes at a time, right?
Mm.
So doing recording sessions, we would spend hours,
Yeah.
like just sitting and working and working. And since I was not on my time, I was on my clients' times now. It's not like I could just be like, hey guys, I need to take a break and it just couldn't happen. So that was the end of that career. And keep in mind, I went through a lot of therapy, physical therapy. I went through, injections in my spine, all kinds of things to trying to alleviate the pain that I was going through, right? But once I finally came to the conclusion that I physically felt better, right? I was like, okay, well, I can no longer pursue this career, at least not at that moment, right? And eventually I returned to school. I finished school, but
Sorry, Marcelo, how old were you
yes.
at the time? Just I don't know if you mentioned it. Did you mention? I know you were
No,
very young.
I was 20 years old at
You
that
was
time.
20 years old when the accident
Yeah.
happened. Yes.
Yeah, I was 20. This was like in 97. And that's why like to me it was just like it was like almost like I was living like a surreal life, right? Because I was young, I was still going to school. My professors were even getting me to like lead on some of the classes because like I was already out in the field doing what my, co-students were they're learning, you know?
So you
So
were
it
living
was a very exciting part of my life,
you were
right?
living the dream life, let's say, right?
100%.
Wow.
So then that got yanked, and it was difficult to first I dealt with my physical pain because that was just like what I had to deal with, like just to even function. So I went through all the therapy for my physical issues that I had, and then once I got to the point where I was like, okay, like, well, what am I going to do now? I still I'm very dependent on having to physically be able to accommodate, standing or whatever. So I was like, I can't, just dive into and take money from people and then not be able to provide what they are paying me for, right? So I, was very disappointed. But I was like, okay, look, things, you know, were meant for me to go. It was this happened to me because I was meant to go through or grow through something like bigger, right?
Yeah.
And that's basically what, you know, I decided to do. I was like, I still love music. I'm passionate about music. And I was like, you know what? I want to start a website about music to sell to DJs because I was very involved in like the DJ aspect of the music industry at that time also. And at that time, all DJs played records. You know, it wasn't like digital or CDs or like MP3s how it is now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to sell vinyl to DJs, you know, across the United States. You know, so I was like, great. I did not go to school for anything that had to do with, you know, websites like the internet was brand new at that time,
Yeah.
right? So and there was no such thing as YouTube. So it's not like I could just go and like, how do I build a website? There were no easy platforms like how we have now that make it very easy to and convenient and financially feasible to
Yeah.
create, you know, something
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is something that I'm going to tackle on full force and I'm going to make it happen. And it was a lot of trial and error. And I basically learned through like the search engines. At that time, Yahoo was like the big one. Google wasn't even that big. And little by little, a lot of trial and error. I went building a website, you know, and this was an e-commerce platform. So obviously I was selling stuff. So I needed to have audio clips. So it was like pretty, looking back, I was like, I can't even believe that I tackled something like that. Right. But I guess being so young, naive, you're like, yeah, I could do this, you know, which is sometimes is an awesome blessing for us too.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
And so I went ahead and I finally, after like months of putting it all together, I went ahead, I launched that business, and that led me into a career in music, you know. So even though I had lost the audio engineering aspect, eventually I formed a record label. I started doing productions and remixes for, you know, artists. It led to a new path that I still was involved in the passion of music,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in a different way. And because of those things, I met some amazing people. It eventually led to my marketing business, which I still run, you know, even once I retired from the music industry. So that lesson, that heartache, that mental and physical heartache, first of all,
Yeah.
was just a way of strengthening my roots. And
Mhm.
the reason why I think it happened was because like it almost felt like when all those good things when I at such a young age were happening to me, right? It almost felt like it was like just falling on my lap, right?
It
It's
felt
not
too
like a lot
easy.
of effort was being put into it, you know?
Mm.
And that made me, looking in retrospect, made me realize I was like, you know what? Things were almost happening too easy, right? And as a person, I don't think I would have been able to grow, you know, the right way if things just kept happening that way, you know. So sometimes we need our challenges, you know, for our own sake, you know, to
Mm.
grow as a human.
I
And
definitely
and
agree.
that is what enabled me to really tackle things in my life many years after that that probably I would have never been able to confront or even had the um the thought of me possibly, yeah, that's something that I know I'm going to take that challenge head on. Like I would probably avoided that, you know, because I wouldn't have built that strength, that confidence of being able to tackle things that I wasn't familiar with, you know. So that was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, it somehow turns out to be like that, doesn't it? Every time when you look in retrospective, you can see it, but in those moments, you don't really recognize it. In those moments, things seem to be falling apart, and you just don't know where to grab onto or where to hold on to. So, could I ask you what was one most challenging thing for you at the time that you could share, that you would like to share with our audience about what happened in that moment during that time? when you experience that that difficulty? Because I know you said that you start with it obviously through the physical and conditioning and reconditioning and everything. It took a while. How long did it take you, by the way, to get better physically, to heal physically?
It took like 7, 8 months of like continuous therapy and like, doing the shots, that they were trying shots in my back, shots in my knees. It wasn't really helping much. They put me on a lot of meds. I did the meds for 1 or 2 days, and I was like, I can't just put my brain in a fog, So the one thing, luckily, I started physical therapy, and I met an amazing physical therapist who really showed me some exercises that I still do to this day. And that is what gave me I guess like the strength in my weak parts, to strengthen those muscles, and it just helped to alleviate a lot of pain.
So
And
when you began to feel better physically, I am guessing that your mental energy and your vitality kind of went up a little bit as well.
100%, for once I was able to focus on something other than my physical body.
Yeah,
Right.
you could think of, because when you're in pain, that's it. You can't think of anything else. You only, the pain is so evident and it's there, and it's almost telling you that you have to heal it. Was there anything else that you did under that, other than the physical work and the physiotherapy? Did you do any mental or emotional work at the time? I know it wasn't very common back then, but did you just, it sounds to me like you have this innate guiding system that you work yourself through the way that
Yeah.
you
At that moment, I didn't realize I was doing certain things, right? But I've always been a more optimistic type of person, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
even when I went to multiple doctors and they were telling me certain things, and they were even recommending surgery for my spine, and they were like, okay, like, look, and obviously they were clear on the pros and cons. The pros would be obviously that I would feel better. The cons would be like, hey, it's a very sensitive area, so a little slip could, you could actually turn out to be worse, right? And obviously I routed to not go the surgery route.
That was your
And
decision.
yes, and then but it was because I was like, I knew that there was other potential, that I was like, no, like this is something that like I would like at least try what I felt in me, that I was like, I would like to at least go with this, and we'll reevaluate in the future if maybe surgery is something that I have to do, right? And so at that time, it's like I would try not to complain. I think that was the one thing that I really didn't even grasp at. I didn't know why I was doing it. It was just my nature, my personality. Even though I was in a lot of pain, sometimes I just simply couldn't avoid it. And it is what it is. You have to complain about the pain, or like sometimes I would get so incredibly nauseous, just from a mixture of so many things, that your body just reacts a certain way. But I try to like not like mentally, my thought wise, I tried not to be like, oh, this is how I'm feeling now. This is how I'm always going to feel. I feel horrible today. Tomorrow's going to be horrible also. No, it was always kind of like, okay, this is how I'm feeling now. Tomorrow is going to be a better day. Tomorrow I am going to feel better. And those are the things that I try to, do on a daily basis, and even because like when you're in physical pain, it almost like freezes you, right? Like because your body is, as a protection mechanism, you almost don't want to move because it hurts, and our body mentally tells us like, okay, don't move because it's going to cause pain, right? So it's very easy in those situations for us to literally put everything on pause, physically, mentally, that's just like okay, like if I don't move, if I don't think too much, like hopefully like no nerves will get activated, right? But that was the thing that it was a challenge, especially when I started learning the physical therapy. It was not easy. It was very painful, right?
Yes.
But I was like, okay, listen, even if it's half an inch and then eventually an inch and then a couple of inches and then feet that I could move my legs and move my spine and my body. I'm going to do it a step at a time, because that was all I could do,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
choice was either like do nothing and continue to like decrease my possibilities of ever having any form of improvement, or take action in, even if it's in as little possible way as possible, but any action is better than no action, and eventually it just builds exponentially, and
Yes.
that's what helped me.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you had, you naturally have this positive outlook and seeking solutions. That's how your mind is orientated. That's what it sounds like, and that helped you. That attitude, the mental attitude, helped you. The choice not to have an operation, like the doctors recommended, meant that you were willing to do something on your side, to do your best, like I said, even if it was just a little, to help yourself through this, even though it was painful. You had this mindset that helped you through it. So that's amazing.
And
So
that mindset is what helped me to build that website. Like I said, it's like
yeah,
I had never, I mean, even just using the internet is not something that we do now. I remember when I was in college using the internet, I had to go to like their internet room, which is like, ancient computers on dial-up, like connecting to the modem. Um,
yeah, I remember
so,
that.
and it was very challenging to like even know where do I even start. I don't even know where to start, but it was like, okay, well, I know the basics, and I started with the most basics, the little tiniest steps, tiniest steps, and every single step that I took, no matter how small or big, I made improvements, and sometimes improvements weren't physically made, but
Mhm.
mentally I learned something, so it was always a form of improvement.
Yeah, there is always something, even though it may not be visible. There's always some expansion, some change, something to learn from everything, and that is something to admire. When you go through challenging situations, yet you have that spark, that energy, that voice that keeps helping you, guiding you to take the next step, even if it's a small one. So movement, it's important.
Absolutely. Yep.
Wonderful,
And
wonderful.
and that's kind of like what feeds us when even if we don't have a successful outcome at that moment, as long as it doesn't sometimes get worse, we know it takes that fear, it diminishes that fear where we're like, hey, I tried it, it didn't work, but it didn't make things worse either.
Mhm.
So it's like now I know, like, it because a lot of the times when we do something and something bad happens, we tend to be like, whoo, I don't even want to try that again because like
Yes,
I could make things worse, right?
yes, yes,
But and sometimes it does happen, but as long as you have the balance of better things happening, over the worst ones, it helps to keep us motivated and keeps that, like, that fire alive for us to keep trying.
yeah. I guess it's that positive outlook again that is it shows up in different aspects of your life, in the way that you move through life, and that is very important. Um, I would like to ask you something, which is something that I usually ask my guests, is that when that accident happened, which it's incredible, my jaw was dropping. I don't know if you saw it, I was like just there. Incredible, incredible story how you made it out of that car in one piece without a scratch. Um, if someone would in the audience will be listening to you right now, is listening to you right now, and maybe they're going through something similar, what would you tell them?
Um, well, first of all, um, I'm a very big believer that anything that gets put in our way, because that was something that it literally got put in my way. I was heading somewhere and poof, something completely got slapped and stopped it, right?
Mhm.
It's meant for us to, like, in one form or another, to grow, to strength. The way I like to see it is like to strengthen our roots, right? we are growing, beings, right? Obviously physically and ultimately mentally, right? So if you compared like a growing tree, right? A tree on the outside above ground, it could seem like it's growing beautifully, it's producing beautiful leaves or beautiful fruit, whatever, if depending on the kind of tree that it is. But if those roots, are not strong, especially I live here in Florida, we're prone to hurricanes,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if those roots are not strong, that beautiful tree, it's going to, fall down very easily, right?
Yeah.
So it's it's those, like, sometimes when we're overprotective, right? Or overprotected,
Mm.
we are not able to face those challenges, right? So, and when we're not able to face those challenges, it does not enable us to grow and strengthen the things that we were meant to be strengthened. So, like the winds that come, the little storms that come, it prepares the tree, right? It prepares it to get ready for that big storm,
Yeah.
So I think when we are confronted with something like that, it's like, okay, like, of course, nobody wants anything bad to happen. But when it does, we need to take the perspective of like, okay, this is meant as a path for me to strengthen something that I might not even be aware of right now, but I'm going to take it on full speed ahead so that I could, learn what it is and see. And sometimes it's a beautiful surprise, of like, wow, I didn't even know that I was lacking in this particular aspect of my life, And that's why when something bad happens to us, we just need to shift that perspective and take it as a lesson and be open. I think the best thing that we could do is be open, right?
Yeah.
Because if we are very close-minded, it just doesn't make it any better. It'll just keep whatever pain, whether it's physical, mental, it'll just keep putting fire on it, right? Because that's all we are focused on. But if we are more open-minded and broaden our perspective, now all of a sudden, all our energy is not going to a very specific point. Now we're broadening it up, and that pain, just by doing that alone, starts to diminish, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is that now all of a sudden we open the doors to other beautiful things. And what we once thought was horrible, it turns out to be like sometimes one of the most beautiful things that could happen to us.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you for that message. It's about being open to new possibilities. It's about being more flexible and adaptable, because this is what life is about: adapting, growing, and strengthening, like you said, our roots, and being able to support ourselves and stand on our own, I guess. So that is wonderful. So today, where you are today, everything, I assume it makes sense now why everything has happened, and everything is in a place that you feel happy to be at the moment.
Absolutely. I mean, look at it in retrospect, yeah, it makes a lot more sense, and even though maybe like on a subconscious level, I was doing things when I was a lot younger, right? But there was no reasoning behind it. Now it's kind of like I could put all those puzzle pieces together, and it makes a lot more sense to me now, and it just helps me to, like, because now that I understand what we're capable of, it just even broadens me even more. It makes me eager to want to keep learning, want to keep
Yes.
helping, want to keep. I get chills just
Yeah.
thinking about this type of stuff. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, that is why you are very passionate about helping people at all levels, body, mind, soul, and probably guide or mentor or coaching people, right, through these kind of things. Well, this is an incredible story. I mean, I'm sure we can go on and analyze and talk about all the details and all the aspects of this transformation. But I would like to ask you if there's any final message that you'd like to share with our audience, if there would be one thing you'd like to tell them that you feel it's important to share, please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, something that that part of what I went through, and I think it has always kind of existed in me just because the nature of how I was raised, to be grateful, right? But sometimes we take it for granted, you know, because it's very easy, like, oh yeah, I'm grateful for this. It's very easy to say, right? But it's very different once we start adding those true emotions to that gratitude, right? It just changes the world. And at least it did for me. And so taking that concept of being grateful, you know, even in those challenges that just seem so dark, right? Just shifting it to a perspective of gratitude, like that in itself is like the most beautiful foundation just for every aspect of our life. If we just follow that one simple thing, but like have meaning to it. Like I said, you know, words have power also. So sometimes the words will start building that emotion in us. But once we tie the words with the actual feeling and the emotions, it's beyond, you know, it's like pure magic.
So yes, it's about feeling the gratitude. It's about embodying the feeling of gratitude, not just saying it, yes, I'm grateful for this and that, but truly feel it in every cell of your being. That is where the magic stands. So I am 100% with you right there on this one. Well, thank you so much for your light, for your experience, for sharing it with everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you, Marcelo.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I hope you have enjoyed this episode as much as I did. This was an incredible story that Marcelo shared with us. I'm going to put his details below, so please make sure to check his details so that you can connect with him. And if you enjoy this episode, please let us know from where you are watching around the world and drop it below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more on The Lighthouse coming soon. Take care.